Hello, Collision.
Hi, Stephen.
Hi, Adam. How are you?
Fantastic. Glad to be here. You?
I'm glad to be here. I
All
almost
right.
didn't get here, but here I am.
Well,
So, let's jump right in here.
okay.
So you were at AWS originally at the kickoff, and then were there for like 11 years, was that right?
That's right.
And then you left, and 2 years ago came back to run the joint, right? So when you came in there, what did you want to do in those first 2 years? And looking back, how have you done so far?
I didn't realize we were going to have a performance review here this morning.
Well, I'm taking it down here. Yeah,
That's fine.
This goes straight to Andy.
Well, so yeah, I spent 11 years helping to start up and run AWS, left for 4.5 years to run Tableau software. And then, unexpectedly, when the deck chairs shuffled around at Amazon, had the chance to come back as CEO of AWS just over 2 years ago, as you said. And it's interesting because it was obviously a very well-functioning, rapid growth organization, and so it's not like anything was broken. And so it's interesting coming in and really wanting to keep the momentum up and trying to make changes, but at the same time, it being a fundamentally healthy organization. So for me, a couple things that were really top of mind, besides just sustaining all of the existing things that we didn't want to lose. A couple of the additional focuses, or foci, I guess, were one to help us, in addition to all of the broad horizontal things we were working on, to also move higher up the stack, to also kind of get more abstracted and higher ease of use. So, for example, we had this contact center solution called Connect, and we wanted to add more sort of horizontal use case or vertical solutions. So we, for example, launched AWS Supply Chain, which is a supply chain solution which is starting out by helping people balance inventory across locations. But I think as we get more and more into the meat of big enterprise and mainstream adoption, it's really important that we continue to cater to the lines of business and not only to IT and developer communities. So that, and then I think the other big thing is making sure that I sometimes joke that my worst fear is I wake up one morning and somebody tells me I work at a big company.
Huh.
I just never want to feel, we always want to act with the nimbleness of a startup, and keeping that going is probably the single most important thing to me.
I imagine it would be a lot scarier if someone woke you up and said, you don't work for a big company anymore.
I suppose, it's maybe a good problem to have, but I never want us to become the incumbent. I never want us to be worried about our revenue streams and worried about safeguarding what we have. At Amazon, it's always being laser focused on working backwards from the customer, being customer obsessed, and taking the attitude of build what customers need. If you don't do it, somebody else will.
Okay, so in the last few months, life has changed for almost everyone in the tech world with generative AI, taking center stage. Now, I'll be honest, people always do these articles about winners and losers and generative AI, and I have to say that typically Amazon, and this is part of your domain, is not among the winners. The narrative, and I'm sure you're going to push back against this, is that OpenAI allied with Microsoft, that kicked off, piggybacking on ChatGPT and the biggest, most popular product in internet history, and Microsoft, which is one of your blood rivals in web services, got a huge boost, and Amazon and Apple that had what used to be these cutting-edge assistants sort of got taken aback by this. Weren't prepared for the large language model, generative AI revolution. You might have a different opinion about that.
Well, as you would expect, I do have a slightly different take on that. Stephen, you and I both go back a ways. Let's take a little history lesson. Who was the #1 search provider in 1997?
Would be Alta Vista.
Alta Vista,
yeah.
Right. I have 20-something-year-old kids. I guarantee you neither one of them have ever heard of Alta Vista. So I think that when GPT 3.5 came out, it was a really fascinating, incredibly, better results than previous versions of GPT or other large language models. And of course, it had a great consumer interface on top of it, ChatGPT, and it's fantastic application. And so of course, it's gotten a whole bunch of notoriety. And any one company that you and I could point to right now might well turn out to be a huge winner, or they might not be, just like Alta Vista. And if they do turn out to be a huge winner, they're not going to be the only winner. Back to 1997, can you imagine you and I sitting around going, who's the internet company going to be? Mm-hmm. It was kind of a silly question, right? And so we're about 3 steps into a 10K race. And so the question is, where are the runners going? What's the course like? Who's watching the race? It's not, well, where exactly are the position of the runners, 3 steps in, 3 seconds into a long, long race. So Amazon has been doing AI for 25 years, going back to personalization on the website. We have over 100,000 AWS customers using our machine learning and AI services. We have LLMs, large language models, in production today, have for a long time, powering Alexa voice response, powering some things on the retail search experience. And we've pivoted so much of this expertise we have now to generative AI. And we're taking a really unique approach all the way from the very bottom to the very top of the stack in a way that I don't think any other provider is, all because that's what we think customers are going to need as this plays itself out over the coming years.
So you say you had your own LLM. Did you think the LLM was on a par with what OpenAI was offering? Google had its own LLM, but out of caution or whatever other reason, maybe they were just doing so well with search, as search is, they held it back. And then comes OpenAI and Microsoft, and then Google goes into a code red. When this exploded, did you go into a code red or something equivalent?
No, definitely no code red. As I said, we've had AI capabilities, for a long time, and I think we always try and act with a sense of urgency, and we have a ton of urgency around generative AI, and believe me, we're putting a ton of resources into all elements of generative AI. But no code red, because we think we understand, where customers are asking us to go. And we're just taking a little bit of a different approach. So we got our own LLMs, and we're going to expose
What's the name of your LLM?
They're going to be under the Titan brand.
Titan.
And we're going to expose these Titan models.
Isn't that the name of the submarine that just...
We named him a while ago.
Okay.
And so we'll release these models later this year for everybody to use. But it's not about any one model, and this is very different. So, OpenAI is a great startup, and they've obviously gotten a lot of traction. To the best of my knowledge, anyway, Microsoft is not building their own models. Mm-hmm. At least they haven't said so publicly. If they are, we're just taking a very different approach from anybody else. So we think that the biggest, most important thing that we hear from customers around the world all the time is they need 2 things. One is choice. So we're trying to democratize generative AI. So we have this service, which is out there now in private preview, called Amazon Bedrock, and it is a managed service for accessing large language models. And so we're going to have the Titan models in there, and we also have Anthropic in there, which is another one of the very leading startups, and we have Stability AI in there, and we have AI 21, and we'll add other good, proven models in there over time. It is so early. Our customers tell us they need to experiment. They need to figure out what models work for what purposes. There's not going to be one model to rule them all. It's kind of a fallacy of a premise. And the second thing they need is enterprise-grade security and privacy. Mm-hmm. The first versions of these LLMs came out, and I've talked to at least 10 Fortune 500 CIOs who have banned ChatGPT from their enterprise because they deemed it, not secure. It's like, hey, my people could go stick their data out on the internet. And then these companies are going to come around saying, oh, well, the next versions are going to be secure, don't worry about it. If I came out with, say, a database and went to an enterprise or a startup and said, oh, this database isn't very secure, but don't worry, the next version will be secure. Can you imagine?
What are the vulnerabilities? What are the vulnerabilities that using, say, ChatGPT, I might experience that you're preventing that you're watching out for?
So, everything AWS does is in an absolutely, high security, private set of capabilities. It's got to be bulletproof security. And so, for example, if you use our generative AI models, whether it's ours or the other models that are going to be inside of Bedrock, it's all in your own virtual private cloud, which is an isolated environment. It's all encrypted. It uses AWS identity, AWS access controls. In that sense, it's quote unquote just another AWS service with all of the same security that any storage, compute, or database service has. And for us, there's no compromise there. From day one, it's got to be the same bulletproof enterprise security as anything else we do. And our customers expect no less from us, nor should they.
Now, did you have any discussions with OpenAI before they closed their Microsoft deal?
I think, look, everybody talks to everybody all the time. So we've had tons of discussions with pretty much every startup and larger company as well over the years. So whoever you put in that sentence, the answer would be yes.
Okay, so the answer is yes. Did you try to buy them? Were you a competitor with Microsoft to close the deal?
Yeah, again, I'm not going to go into details of conversations that may or may not have taken place, back in the day.
Okay. All right, so Bedrock, when I use Bedrock, then I have a choice of, you want to be like the Switzerland of LLMs? Is that what you're talking about?
It's more like we're trying to democratize it. It's not being agnostic, it's democratizing it. So the world needs access to a whole bunch of models. You need it in a place that you trust. You need it with the security you demand. You need a common API framework, so when you go from model A to B to C, you're not reinventing the wheel each time. And so our customers, we're working deeply with folks from lots of different industries. So Old Mutual, which is one of the largest financial services companies in Africa, is moving on to AWS and using our generative AI. Omnicom, one of the largest communications firms and advertising firms in the world, is going to be doing generative AI with us. And all these types of companies are going to be experimenting and using different pieces of this, and having it be consistent and easy to use as well as secure is super important. But it's not only on that level. So when you've got the folks who are building and training these models, which is an inordinately expensive task, training these models is a big deal. It's got to be price performant. And so in addition to our hosting a lot of GPU-based compute capacity, we also design our own chips. And so we've got a whole line of chips for just training models. That's the Trainium chip, which goes in our compute capacity, and a separate line of chips called Inferentia for doing inference or running models in production. And these chips have incredible price performance, and for many applications, already have by far the leading price performance. And this becomes incredibly important as you talk about spending tens of millions, hundreds of millions of dollars to train a single model. And that's another form of democratization where we're going to make it affordable for more companies to actually build and train their own models. So
do some of these chips basically perform the graphics processing function that NVIDIA chips do?
Yeah, so you can use, look, again, there's a constant theme here, which is choice. So we have and will have, I'm sure for a long period of time, customers who want to use GPU-based capacity, like NVIDIA. And we have a great partnership with NVIDIA. And it's a very heterogeneous, textured world out there. We have a lot of customers, and I predict more and more over time, who are going to want to use the AWS designed chips instead of the GPU-based capacity. And they just have different characteristics, but we feel great about the price performance, which is critical in this line, that the Amazon-based chips are going to be able to provide. So yeah, it's sort of customers will choose what's best for them and for their applications.
Are you participating in the CHIPS Act that the current administration, devoting billions of dollars to? Is your operation going to be a beneficiary of that?
Yeah, absolutely. And we're deeply collaborating with many of the different providers who are building chip foundries and that type of thing. And we've committed to take long-term capacity from more than one of those efforts. And so we're there both kind of pushing it forward from the policy side as well as financially, helping to provide certainty there. And we think it's important for supply chain continuity for a lot of different perspectives.
So I know that you're not in charge of Alexa per se, but the large language models certainly map onto that. Are we going to see the Amazon assistant in Alexa take on, more general conversations like we see with the GPT chat and Anthropic, your partner, and other places. Right now, all of a sudden, Alexa seems like dumber than it used to.
Well, I guess we're each entitled to our own opinion, but I love Alexa. We use Alexa at home all the time. I hope you don't, and we think it's fantastic. But
well,
I also
it's great,
think
but
that,
then the next thing came along, right?
well, I also think that, well, Alexa's great, and Alexa's super popular, and very, very widely used. But all that being said, we are really excited about the putting additional generative AI capabilities into Alexa. You can only imagine there are large numbers of folks inside of Amazon who are working to continue to improve Alexa with the latest large language models. And so Alexa's vision is really to become your true personal assistant who really knows you, can really anticipate all your needs and habits. And I think that's going to play itself out over time, but they have an aggressive roadmap. I think we have work to do, but we feel confident that with a lot of these LLM capabilities, put into Alexa more and more, already there, but put in more and more over time, that Alexa can fulfill that vision of really being your personal assistant.
Well, I was being a little facetious when I said it's dumb, because obviously you're correct. It's been a wildly popular product, and it helps people get hold of all kinds of Amazon services and places from other things. You've got millions or thousands, many thousands of skills, but there's a genuine question about whether people would want a device in their home to carry on that her kind of constant conversation there. Is Amazon committed to that? Like, I'm wondering, I know at Amazon, typically, and this started with Jeff Bezos, big products come out with what's called the 6-pager, right? Like someone writes, what would the press release be for this product that I'm just thinking of now? And that is the goal, and everyone looks at this 6-pager obsessively. And was there a 6-pager for an LLM, for a personal assistant that you're working off now?
Well, again, you said I don't run Alexa. I don't. So I wasn't there in the original Alexa meetings, but I guarantee you there were...
You sit in the room where those pagers are read. Right?
Yeah, all the time. So when we talk about being customer obsessed at Amazon, it's not just words. There's actual mechanisms that we use to do so. So for any significant feature, way, way smaller than all of Alexa. So for any significant feature, we actually write a press release and a full FAQ, 6-pager, and before we ever start coding. And the idea being, why would you waste your engineers' time if you don't think you're about to build something which is both delightful and breakthrough for customers, and which you can explain in plain language. And we might go through that once, we might go through it 4 times, and we'll keep working on it until we're satisfied that we got something which is worth our customers' time. And so we do that all the time in AWS, in Alexa, in our stores division, and all over the company. It's ingrained into Amazon, and it's part of that working backwards process. And we actually run workshops for our AWS customers now because so many of them want to understand that working backwards process from us.
Right. Now, you do have a product, you didn't mention it yet, but I will for you, called Code Whisperer, right? Which writes code, I guess in the same way that Microsoft's Copilot, the GitHub product does. How does that compare with Copilot, Code Whisperer?
I could not be more excited about Code Whisperer. So if you just take a step back for half a second, so I talked about the full stack approach. We got our chips at the bottom for people building and training models. We've got Bedrock in the middle for the vast majority of our customers who are going to want to access different models and have that choice and security. And then there'll be a bunch of solutions and applications built on top of those models. We will build a few of those, and we will have partners and customers build a bajillion of them. And one of the first ones we built on top of our models was, as you said, Code Whisperer. And so you type in English, we'll get to other languages over time, and Code Whisperer gives you back code. And we released it into general availability a couple months ago. It is being adopted like wildfire, tons of people using it. And in internal code challenges that we ran ourselves, developers are actually completing their task 57% faster using Code Whisperer. We had a big partner, Accenture, who did their own test on their very different application. They came up with 30% improved faster time. And so whether it's 30, 57, who knows what it'll be. It'll be different for different applications, but it's an incredible productivity enhancer. Will take a lot of the heavy lifting off of developers, and also is really differentiated in providing a lot of security characteristics. So Code Whisperer, unlike some others out there, will tell you when you're using open source, what the licensing practices and requirements are around use of different code packages and open source packages. And so it's really built not only with productivity, but also with security in mind.
So a big inflection point like generative AI often sort of shuffles the deck. Things get calcified, on who's leading in a given sector at a given point. And when a big inflection point comes out, all bets are off there. AWS is the leader in web services. And do you feel a particular urgency at this time to maintain your position?
We ought to feel urgency every day. I mean, we're a very customer, not competitor-focused company. So, I'll say that we don't believe in waking up afraid of competitors, but we believe in waking up every day paranoid that we'll disappoint our customers. And so we have no birthright. We haven't earned anything. We'll earn it every single day. As you said, we are the leader in cloud providers, and our competitors don't generally actually release the size of their businesses. I don't know why. But ours is probably, most analysts will say, 2 to 4 times as big as our next 2 closest competitors.
85 billion?
85 billion a year revenue run rate currently for AWS. And so, we are the most broadly adopted cloud in the world. And I think that generative AI, just like other things that have come before, is the next big wave. And this one's a really big one, don't get me wrong, but it's the next big wave in the cloud. You need the cloud for generative AI. Almost nobody is going to want to afford nor have the operational excellence and the security required around doing this stuff themselves. And so generative AI will happen for the most part in the cloud, and generative AI is part of your broader data strategy. So many companies already have their data in AWS, and you're going to need data to feed into LLMs. And so it really all becomes part of a single data strategy. And so it's incumbent upon us, our customers need us to have great generative AI. But if we do our jobs well, then it'll be really an enabler of the next wave of things that our customers want to do in the cloud.
But your growth has slowed. Maybe it's a macroeconomic phenomenon, but at this time, and you gave a memo to your staff, to your people saying, well, there's headwinds ahead, the end of the year there. What's that situation there? Maybe AI will help you reverse that trend?
Yeah. Well, obviously, I don't need to tell anybody here in this room, it's a time of great economic uncertainty around the world, many different industries. I think the entire high-tech sector, certainly the software sector, almost every company has seen a slowing of growth over the past few quarters. Our competitors have, a lot of our ISV customers have, and technology partner customers have. So we're not immune to that, and we're still absolutely growing, but the growth rates have come down over the past few quarters. I think the overall situation is fundamentally sound and solid. I think it is a question of, we have a lot of customers who are cost optimizing. They're taking their existing workloads, their existing spends, and getting as hyper efficient as they can with them. And by the way, that's okay. They should be efficient. We like our customers to be efficient. So I had one large customer who has actually, in their existing workloads, has reduced their spend by over 10%. That same customer in the same quarter signed a multi-year, extremely large commitment to move hundreds of new workloads onto AWS. So you kind of have to de-average this and say that people are cost optimizing their existing workloads while still moving new workloads aggressively into the cloud. And so I think the cloud migration is alive and well. Our competitive position remains steady. And there is brisk competition, as there should be. So I think if you take a medium-term perspective, we think there's good prospects ahead.
So I know you wanted to mention a word, we're in Canada here, about what AWS is doing for Canadian customers or investing in Canada.
I'm very excited to, number one, be here back in Canada. And yeah, we've been invested here for a number of years. We actually opened our first infrastructure, our first big data center region in Montreal in 2016. Late this year or beginning of next year, we'll open up our second full independent infrastructure region in the West, in Calgary, which will be great for Western Canada latency characteristics, as well as for disaster recovery and having multiple options inside of Canada. And I'm really pleased that if you add all that up, we project that by the year 2037, we will have invested $21 billion in Canada. In addition to having a sizable team here spread throughout the country to work with customers, and we've got a great set of customers from TELUS to BMO and lots of startups, many of whom are represented here. So we're deeply invested and committed to Canada.
So running this $85 billion sub-company in terms of revenue isn't the only thing you do at Amazon. You're in charge of sustainability, right?
I am. That is my second role at Amazon.
So Amazon announced, like a while ago, that it was going to make a pledge that half the deliveries in the company will be carbon neutral by 2030. Did I get that right? And then more recently you said, we're not going to be able to meet that milestone there. What happened?
Well, we never said we weren't going to meet that milestone. We basically, look, these goals morph and change, and we've taken a much bigger, much more ambitious target than that. So we actually have very publicly stated that we're going to be net zero carbon across all of Amazon by the year 2040, 10 years ahead of the Paris Accords. Now for AWS, which is a tech company, that's hard but doable. For the retailer, that is highly non-trivial. It's a difficult challenge. We don't even know in all areas how we'll accomplish it, but we wanted to have a forcing function for ourselves, and we wanted to inspire other companies and other organizations to join us. And in that climate pledge, we now have over 400 organizations who have joined us and taken the climate pledge. So you can really think of it as the climate pledge really became the superset, and so the individual targets really just kind of got wrapped into there. So we've taken a bigger, bolder effort. We have other big, bold efforts as well. We're going to be 100% renewable energy across all of Amazon, including AWS, by 2025. So that's just 2 years from now. And we're already over 85% of the way there. For 3 years in a row, we've been the largest corporate purchaser of renewable energy on planet Earth. So we have a lot of effort into being a true leader in sustainability, and I hope others will join us.
One quick question before we're off is, you're now working for the guy who used to run AWS. Andy Jassy is the CEO of Amazon, and he's your boss, and you're in charge of his baby. Any tensions there?
No. Andy and I have a great relationship. He and I worked 30 feet apart from each other for 11 years, which is one of the reasons it was pretty easy to come back. And it's actually fantastic to have somebody to partner with who understands the business. There's not a lot of, it's a high bandwidth, quick set of conversations. And AWS has a lot of work to do. Our customers have a lot of expectations from us. And I say the more hands on deck, the better.
Great. Well, thank you, Adam. It's terrific talking to you.
Thank you, Stephen, and thank you, everybody.